Open box 1 of 3 to locate the assembly manual and hardware box. Label panels using a sticky note, making sure all pieces are present. Set panels aside. Note: keep some of the styrofoam from the packaging, as this will be helpful while attaching the door panels. Open box 2 of 3. Label panels using a sticky note. Set panels aside. Open and inventory your hardware parts to ensure all pieces are present. Open the lift box 3 of 3. Check for the lift adjustment tool 5/32 Allen wrench taped to the plastic wrapped around the lifter. Keep this tool handy, as you'll need it to adjust the height of your sewing lift after assembly is complete. Set the lift aside. Attach 4 T2 locking plate casters to the underside of panel G using 16B1 fixed bolts and the Allen wrench included in the hardware kit. Lock the casters and flip panel G over. Attach 8 C1 cam bolts to panel G. Use a small amount of WD-40 in the threaded insets to help the cam bolts attach easily. Wipe any excess spray with a paper towel. Note: the cam bolts will need to sit as flush as possible to the panel to ensure the panels will connect in a later step. Set panel G aside. Insert 4 D1 dowels into the edge of panel Z. Use a mallet to tap the dowel pins in as far as they'll go. Note: if using glue for the dowel pins, only glue in one side. This is 100% optional. Attach 2 C1 cam bolts to panel Z. Insert 4 D1 dowels into the edge of panel X. Attach 4 C1 cam bolts to panel X. Insert 8 D1 dowels into the edges of panel D. Attach the right lift rail onto panel Z using 3S1 3.5 by 14 screws as shown. We will now attach panels X, Z, and D. Insert C1 cam bolts on panels X and Z into cams on panel D. Tighten cam locks by turning them 180 degrees clockwise. Apply C2 cam covers. Set the cabinet shell aside. Note: assembly is shown with the cabinet upside down. The cam locks on panel D will be on the back of the cabinet. Insert 4 D1 dowels into the edges of panel Y. Attach the left lift rail to panel Y using 3S1 screws. Insert 4 D1 dowels into the edges of panel F. Flip panel Y over and attach 2 C1 cam bolts. Gather the cabinet shell, G panel, Y panel, and F panel. With the cabinet shell upside down, insert C1 cam bolts on panels X and Y into cams on panel F. Tighten by turning cam locks 180 degrees clockwise to lock. Apply C2 cam covers. Note: assembly is shown upside down. Insert the C1 cam bolts on panel G into cam locks on panels X, Y, Z, and D. Tighten cam locks and apply C2 cam covers. Note: make sure casters are locked. Carefully turn the cabinet over onto its casters. You may need a partner to help you with this, but it is not required. Locate the hydraulic lift and spray the lifter with WD-40 or a lubricant spray. Spray the pulley wheels, cables, cylinder, rod, and spring. Wipe off any excess. Ensure the spring is attached to the rod and the lift assembly and the block is intact. Do not cut the zip tie. If the block is removed or falls out before lift assembly is complete, the cables will retract and installation will need to be completed via the alternate airlift installation. Attach panel A3 to the lift assembly using 4S1 screws. The cables go toward the back of the cabinet. Guide the lift onto the lift rails using the plastic guides, 2 on each side. Ensure the guides are hugging the lift rails as you lower the lift onto the rails. Insert ends of the cables into the rail tabs. Make sure the cable is hooked into the rail tables on both sides. The square metal ends on the cables should be sitting atop the rail notches. Lower the lift by pressing down on the lift platform until you hear a click. Once the lift is locked into the stopper, you can remove the wooden block from the back of the lift assembly. If your block does not come out at this point, move on with assembly, and once the cabinet is completely assembled, you can push the lift into the storage position to pull the cylinder even farther back to release the wooden block. Use WD-40 to lubricate the holes on panel A. Insert 8C1 cam bolts into panel A. Attach M magnets to panel A using S1 screws as shown. Reserve the magnet plate for use in a later step. Lower panel A, inserting C1 cam bolts on panel A into cam locks on panels X, Z, D, and Y. Tighten cam locks and apply C2 covers. Note: support the top leaves as you open them to tighten the 2 cam locks. This is on the inside to prevent damage to your cabinet. Insert 3C1 bolts onto panel V1. Insert 18C3 bolts onto panel V1. Insert 3C1 bolts onto panel V2. Insert 18C3 bolts onto panel V2. Attach magnet catch plate to panel V2 using 2 S2 3x14 screws. Attach magnet catch plate to panel V1 using 2 S2 screws. Attach D-door hook onto panel V1 using a hammer or mallet. Repeat on panel V2. Insert 2 D1 dowels into the edges of panels O1 and O2. Attach H handles to panels V1 and V2 using B2 4x20 fixed bolts. Insert C1 bolts on panels V1 into the cam locks on panel O1 as shown. Repeat with panels V2 and O2. Tighten cam locks and apply C2 cam covers. Attach 3 H2 flush hinges to panel O1 using S2 screws as shown. Repeat with panel O2. Attach 6 C3 bolts into each panel L, 2 total. Attach 1 C3 bolt onto each panel L1, 4 total. Insert 5 D2 dowels into each panel F1, 4 total. Insert bolts on panel L1 into cam locks on panel L2. Insert bolts on panel L into cam locks on panels L1 and L2. Tighten and apply C2 cam covers. Repeat for the second door bin. Insert C3 bolts on panel V1 into the cams locks on panels F1, L1 and L2. Tighten and apply C2 cam covers. Repeat with panel V2. Attach H2 flush hinges on panels V1 and V2 to panels X and Z using S2 screws. Use styrofoam from the packaging to help support the doors when you attach them to the sides of the cabinet. The Bandicoot cabinet comes equipped with 2 door hooks to hold your leaf panels in place while in use. Make sure you turn the J-hooks out when closing your cabinet. Install the rubber bumpers to the corners of each leaf panel to help keep the panels protected. To activate the hydraulic lift, you'll put firm pressure on the sewing platform to move the lift into the next position. You can now adjust the height of the sewing platform to match the height of your sewing machine.